Skip twice. So, introductions. My name is Funsized, or Zach, occasionally. I'm Swift president. This is my second year as president. This is my fourth year as an electrical engineering student. So, I'm also a level 8 techno wizard. What that means is every time you go to a convention and every time you bring down a system, you get to add a level. However, every time you mistype clear in a Unix terminal, you have to subtract a level. So that's why I'm a level 8, just to explain that very briefly. So, next slide. Okay, so SWIFT, what is it? It stands for Students with an Interest in the Future of Technology. Why the bad acronym? It's actually just a disguise for an obsession with categorization labels. But don't tell anyone, because it's kind of awesome, right? So, next slide. Weren't you guys a telecommunications club before? Yes, originally SWIFT was a CIS club, but as we've expanded, we've sort of broadened our horizons. So we do a lot of things now. I'm going to be telling you about some of those things. But we decided as an e-board that it would be better if we changed our name to Technology. Not a big name, thankfully we don't even have to change the logo, it's great. But yeah, so, and you see here Swift does it all. Mostly we just focus on awesome though. So, that was a joke. Thanks guys. Okay, next slide. Okay, what is an e-board? E-board stands for electoral board. Basically, it's club leadership. For Swift, you can see us wearing our black polos, and it has Swift and then our nick, or our handle. Why do I tell you this? I tell you this because that's how you interact with Swift, is we plan all of the events, we set up the meetings, we run some of the meetings. So, if you want to get to know Swift, if you want to become more involved, talk to eBoard. Really quick, if you are eBoard, please stand up. So, and we have many more eBoard members than this. We actually have a huge eBoard this year, but that's great, because it means that we will be able to do more for you guys. So, if you have any questions, talk to these people. Also, if you're wearing a black shirt, we know ninjutsu, so don't mess with us. Next. Okay, really fast. Who's a freshman? Don't be afraid to raise your hands, it's okay. Okay, cool. Who's a second year? Okay, very cool. Who has lots of years? Yeah, college, the best 8 years of my life. So, next slide. Freshmen, I just want to welcome you. I know that this is the second week, third week maybe that you've been at Cal Poly. It can be a little disorienting. But hopefully we can help ease your transition. I remember when I first started, I kept coming to clubs and I'm like, why, I was interested, why should I join your club? Give me more information. Well, I'm going to let you know why Swift is the club for you. So don't panic. This is critical. It gets easier, trust me. Or at least you care less. Okay, so who are we? I think I basically already introduced us. So we're a technology club. We were started in 1992. What that means is that this is the 20th anniversary of Swift. So, woo! We are split CS, CIS, and ECE majors. This is the original logo. Not really, for those of you who aren't laughing. Next slide. Okay, so who's a CS major? Okay? Who is... real quick, I just wanted to point out that I googled CS major for pictures, and this was the first picture that popped up. That's awesome, because there definitely needs to be more women in technological fields. So, next slide. This is the first picture that popped up for CIS majors. Who's a CIS major? Awesome. And then finally, who's an ECE major? This is the first picture that popped up. It's okay. He looks like he's having fun. It doesn't matter. This is the most social interaction he's had all month. Next slide. Any other majors? Very cool. So traditionally, we've had bio students, aerospace students, English students. This is not just a technical field club. I mean, mostly we do technical things, but we are open to anyone. So if you have friends And you're like, man, you'd probably really like Swift, but oh my goodness, you're not a CS major. It's okay, invite them anyway, because we do a lot of things that are aimed at people who are not in that field. So, next slide. Okay, briefly, what does Swift do? And when I say do, I mean these are events that we have throughout the year. These are all events that we've had in the past, except for the third one on the list there. Very briefly, I'm going to go through them. So, Frag Night, 60-person land fest. Basically, we come in here, and it's almost this full, and we turn off the lights because it's lit by monitors. We have so many people with computers, and this room is a unique room on the campus in that it's totally wired. Every seat has an Ethernet port, and it's jacked into ridiculously fast everything. So, when I say LANFest, I mean LANFest. Number 2, Install Fest. Real briefly, who is familiar with Linux? Awesome. So, most of you will know what I'm talking about when I say that we're going to help you install it. For those of you who don't know, it's an operating system. It's like Windows, except better and free. We're not biased in here at all. So, Install Fest, you can bring your machine to us. We'll help you either defrag your hard drive and install it as a dual boot, or if you want to delete Windows, I'm happy to help with that. But if you're not quite ready for that step yet, then we help you install Ubuntu or Linux of some type to your hard drive or as a virtual machine. A virtual machine is essentially a program that runs on your computer that emulates another computer. So it's a way to run operating systems virtually without the danger of risking your hardware. So, number 3, Loxford. Yes, pizza! Okay. Is basically what it sounds like. It's lockpicking. It's ethical lockpicking. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, lockpicking is essentially the art and science of manipulating physical locks to open when you don't have the original key. So that's something that we do here for fun. We teach you how to do it. We teach you the ways that you legally can do it and the ways that are good practice. So you only practice on your own locks. Basically, there's certain areas you don't do it, obviously, but it's something that we teach. And it's something that I think pretty much everybody on eBoard has their own set of picks. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. You get to learn some new skills that way. Soldering tutorials. Soldering is a skill that is rapidly becoming more popular in the homebrew community. So if you've ever wanted to build your own circuit or modify a circuit or what say you, soldering is a good way to go. If you've never done it before, it's intimidating and scary. And if you don't have the proper tools, it's almost impossible. Yes, flat iron is the best way to do it. Not really. Especially for surface mount. That's another thing, is are you doing small components or large components? So that's another thing that we will be teaching, is basically how do you not burn yourself? Because that hurts. I have scars all over my hands.
Flat iron, you do it all at once, right?
There you go, right. Okay, Red Team Workshop. Okay. Red Team Workshops are basically, we bring you in and we have a sandbox environment, meaning that we've separated you from any other networks. And on a computer, you participate in a sort of virtual sparring match with other people and learn some skills about computer penetration testing and exploitation. So again, we only do this in an ethical manner. We do this in a safe manner, so we generally help you. Either we let you use one of our machines or help you set up your machine so that it's not going to get attacked, those sorts of things. Only in sandbox environments though. So that is another thing that we do. Also, Tech Symposium, technical white papers. We bring in professors, graduate students. Essentially the idea of Tech Symposium is they're higher level presentations on technical subjects. So most of what Swift does is designed to be sort of intro level. If you want to get interested in it, you can come in and see a Swift meeting. Tech Symposium, which will happen more towards the end of the year, is designed really to be for advanced topics. But it's very interesting, and even I've gone to a bunch of Tech Symposiums where I didn't know even what the title meant. early on, and I still learned a lot. So they're really great experiences. Also, we have ALSYS, which stands for the Advanced Linux System Administration Symposium. And essentially, it's basic Linux administration for fun and profit. So, next slide. Really fast, I'm going to talk about membership. Swift is $10 a quarter, $30 a year. So if you come in second quarter, you only pay $20. If you come in third quarter, you only pay $10. Why would I give Swift my hard-earned dollars, you ask?
One fuzzy pizza.
Well, yes, that is primarily the reason, is it helps fund pizza. That doesn't mean that you can't have pizza if you don't pay membership fees. We're not exclusive in any way. The meetings, general meetings, are not barred from anyone, but it definitely helps us not go broke. Also, there's members-only events throughout the year. Some of the workshops are members-only. For example, the Red Team workshops. And many of the cons that we go to, simply because you have to be a member of Swift so that we can help pay for those through ASI. It's part of our budget with them. And so when we go to conventions, if you're interested in going to conventions, then membership is required. And also, at the end of every quarter, we have a member raffle, where we basically raffle off prizes that were given to us from industry. So, you know, if you like swag, if you like stuff from, I'm trying to think of some of the places we've had swag from.
Facebook.
Big companies like Facebook,
Steam
Games, those kinds of things.
Riot.
We do those, yeah, Riot. We do that at the end of the quarter, and it's members only. So, next slide. Okay, so I mentioned briefly, we go to cons. Cons are conventions, and we go to several a year. I've put up 3 of the big ones on the screen here. Quick poll, who's heard of DEF CON? Okay, so a good number of you. I've gone to DEF CON several years now. It is quite possibly the most intense thing I've ever done. It's very exciting, incredibly oriented towards learning, and it's just awesome. Similar to DEF CON, smaller versions of DEF CON are TourCon and Layer 1. TourCon is coming up in 3 weeks, 4 weeks? It's October 19th through the 21st. For you freshmen, I know this could be a little like, oh goodness, so many things are happening at once. TourCon is one of the best ways to get introduced to our environment, our community. It's very cool. So it's in San Diego. It costs $100 for registration. But essentially the way the cons work is they have lockpicking villages, hardware hacking villages. They have talks on industry, exploitation, on security, all those kinds of things. So if you're interested in going to TourCon, come talk to me or send me an email. But it's great. And then Layer 1 is in May, so it's also towards the end of the year. And that's actually in LA, and it's run by some very good friends of ours, whom I will talk about briefly later.
And it's awesome because we don't have to pay for lodging, because we just drive out from here.
Right, yeah, generally what we do with Layer 1 is, I just drive back here because it's only like 30 minutes away. So instead of having to pay for a hotel, we get that figured out. Also, the other thing we do in January that I forgot to put up on here was Scale. Scale is the Southern California Linux Expo. And basically, that is more of a professional convention. These are all HackerCons. That's what they are. Scale is designed more towards professional business employees. So it's a little bit lower key. It focuses on some different topics. You're not going to see exploitation talks necessarily at Scale. They don't have a lockpicking village. However, it's one of my favorite cons throughout the year because not only do I learn so much, but it's much more of a focus on open source software, especially in education. So that's very cool. Next slide. Don't worry, it's nothing we can't fix with caffeine. That screwed up my font so bad. Wow. But this is a picture from DEF CON, from CTF, Capture the Flag, which is a lot like the Red Team workshops. So next slide. Here's a picture from TourCon. This is another thing they do at conventions, is the tamper-evident contest. Basically, you're given a box or an envelope covered in tamper-evident material like bilayer tape, physical security, invisible ink, wax seals, those kinds of things. And your job is to get into it, modify the contents, and get back out without it looking like you did anything. This is a contest that Swift has participated in for several cons now, and will probably continue to. It's awesome, may I just say. You feel like James Bond the whole time. So, next slide. Okay, we're Linux-centric. What does that mean? Basically, everybody in Swift runs Linux. Not all the time, maybe. We have some weak-minded people, no, I'm just kidding, who run Windows mostly, but they do dual boot Linux, or at least have a working understanding of how Linux functions.
At least with VM.
So mostly, a lot of us use Arch or Debian, probably not Ubuntu. If you want to know why, come talk to me. Sometimes Gentoo, even, but definitely not Solaris. More like Slowlaris. So, anyway. Yeah, pity laughs. Okay, next slide. Okay, IRC. IRC is sort of the underground fabric that knits Swift together. So IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat. Can we watch the video? I'll click the link.
Oh, is that the...
Is the hacker show embedded in?
Yes.
Hell yeah. I mean, how
I could have, but that would have required work. I just got the things.
It's coded, but it could take days.
Still no sign of fighting on Transact, obviously.
No. Result fighting problem is easily as good a hacker as all.
Yeah, he's probably trying to decode the back door too.
You know, what if he's not trying to hack up? I mean, what if he's trying to find it?
IRC, Internet Relay Chat. It's how hackers talk when they don't want to be overheard.
It's a pretty primitive chat program.
Think of it like shipping channels in the ocean. You can't see them until a boat cuts through the water leading the way. If two boats meet in the middle of the ocean to swap a load of illegal drugs, you have to catch them in real time. Otherwise, there's no evidence of the meeting left behind.
Names, no accounts, no records of exchange.
Well, how do they see each other?
Online names.
Okay, so what? We got a fist and what's armies?
Oozemeister. I'll set up an alarm to alert us if either name enters an IRC channel.
And can we see what they're saying?
Lead speak. Luckily, I speak lead.
That's so hard.
So late.
Do you speak lead?
I actually speak Leet fluently, but whenever I switch into Leet mode, it reduces my IQ by 50. So, okay, so that is a terrible description of IRC. Basically, IRC is just a chat room where you can join up. You use some sort of handle, font size, for instance, and you can talk. It's a whole protocol. It's really a fascinating thing, but basically, you can either use a terminal session with SSH to connect to a server where you have IRC set up, and then you can ping to a server, or you can use a client. Basically, there's a lot of ways to connect. There is a tutorial on our website. There's also an in-window box where you can you click on IRC, and it opens up a thing, and you can enter in your username and chat that way. That is a good way for your first time, but it's not very good for if you want to spend a lot of time in there. Most Swift members idle all the time in Swift. So please note, Pound Swift, it is the main social channel. It requires a thick skin, kind of like 4chan. In fact, there's a lot of 4chan links in Pound Swift. Pick a good handle and don't say stupid things. However, this is not always the best environment for new people trying to come in. So we also have Swift Help. Swift Help is a subset channel of Pound Swift, and pretty much the only people in there are e-board members. And the idea is that if you have questions, or you're just trying to get used to IRC, or whatever, if you're a basic newbie, come to Swift Help, and it's a totally inviting environment.
We won't consult you, but we might tease you a bit.
We will definitely help you out with any problems that you have, as long as we can. And feel free to ask stupid questions. There aren't any stupid questions when it comes to Linux, because all of them are going to be stupid. So it's okay. We understand. We went through the same phase. Next slide. Not family friendly. Next slide. Also, may cause perspective. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, next slide. Come on. All right. So, Swift values. we're a hacker club, and I'm going to explain what that means in a little bit. Also, we pretty much subscribe to Learn How to Learn. So if you come to us and you're like, hey, I don't understand anything, can you teach me? The answer is yes, but you're going to have to help yourself first. You're going to have to establish basic ideas, and we can guide you in the right direction, but it's going to require some work. So learn by doing, hands-on. That's why we run workshops. We're not just a theoretical club. We want you to put your hands on technology and understand it. Okay? Try it. Did it break? Don't be afraid to try things. That is sort of a hacker mentality. You have to explore. You have to try things on your own. So, next slide. Okay. Philosophy time. Now, some of you are like, this is a tech club. Why are we going to talk about philosophy? Well, I'm going to explain that. Next slide. Nobody laughed at my GIF. It took me like an hour to find that GIF. Okay.
Make it, right? Make it.
Hacker. Right. Hacker. That's what I meant, not fine. Next slide. Poll. Who thinks hacker is a negative term?
I hate those guys. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Don't be afraid. It's definitely like, have you ever heard hackers being negatively portrayed in the media? Who's heard hackers be negatively portrayed in the media?
Oh,
Okay, that's what I was expecting. Next slide. Okay, so really briefly, I'm going to redefine terms of what you may have heard. So this is, if you're wondering, this is from the Hacker Manifesto. We don't fully subscribe to that document, but it does have some very powerful imagery into it. Next slide. Okay, definition of hack. To cut or shape by, or as if by crude or ruthless strokes. I actually really like that definition, but it doesn't really explain what hackers do. So, the popular definition, this is actually from Merriam-Webster, to use one's skills in computer programming to gain illegal or unauthorized access to a file or network. That's a terrible definition of a hacker because, first of all, it limits hackers to just computers. Second of all, it only portrays hackers in a negative light. A much better term for this would be cracker. A cracker is someone who uses one's skills to gain unauthorized access, right?
Black hacker.
You guys shouldn't be thinking those racist thoughts now. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, wait. I forgot my definition, which is the only correct one, which is to manipulate or repurpose a system in a manner not intended by the creator of the system. That's kind of general purpose, but basically it says, stuff done broke, and you did it. That's hacking. Next slide. Okay, so obviously a hacker is someone who hacks. Hacker is going to hack. I love this picture, personally. Anyway, next slide. Okay, so hacker values. Someone who thinks outside the box and then breaks into it. They seek alternative paths. They also are discontent with accepted norms. I think that's the right word. Anyway, and also they reevaluate everything constantly. Basically what that means is that a hacker mentality says, I'm not going to accept what's normal. And oftentimes that does turn into sort of a social commentary, but you can apply it to computer systems. You know, so normally I connect with this protocol, but what would happen if I connected with that protocol and then tried to get around it? Oh man, nobody ever thought of that before. So those are hacker values. Next slide. Ethical hacking. Very briefly, I just want to cover that hacking is not unethical. Hacking is merely using a system in the way it wasn't intended, right? So I get really personally frustrated when hackers in the media are portrayed in a very negative light because, first of all, it limits the way people think of hackers, which is bad because hacking, and I'll get into more of this later, is, in my opinion, a way to fix things that are broken. It is one of the best methods to fix things that are broken. Anyway, it's the use of technical skills to manipulate a system constrained by moral and ethical boundaries. Swift only does legal things. We're not going to teach you how to do illegal things. We'll teach you how to do things that could be used illegally, but we will never teach you how to do things illegally. And we do not condone that. So if you are here to learn how to hack your best friend's, you know, whatever, without his consent, we're not going to help you with that. Next slide. And just remember, the status is not quo. Dr. Horrible fans? No? Okay. Yeah. I don't even know, I mean, he's phone freaking here, but they're computerized. Dude, they won't even know I was gone. Next slide. Yes, and this is actually more from the Hacker Manifesto. And really the only thing that you should pull from this is, you may stop this individual, but you can't stop us all. After all, we're all alike. Whoa, dude. So, the purpose of these two slides was to demonstrate that hackers are sort of a split group. We don't always think in the same way. Swift doesn't subscribe to the really radical hacker notions, but we're a hacker club. I mean, that's really what I wanted to emphasize. We are a hacker club. We do hackerish things. So, next slide. Hacking is a way of life. Hacking is a vehicle for change. Hackerspaces. Who has heard of hackerspaces before? Okay. So basically, hackerspaces are places that they're sort of like lab setups, whether it be physical or virtual, where people go and collectively work on systems together. So, you know, for example, there's a hackerspace in LA called Nullspace Labs, and they have 3D printers, PCB making software.
Soul eating elevator.
Yes.
This.
I'm blanking. What else is at NSL? There's a bunch of stuff, like a laser printer, laser cutter,
You got
a bunch
vinyl.
of soldering.
Vinyl printing.
There's essentially a lot of tools available for anyone's use at NSL.
Stuff like that.
And it's sort of a community project to encourage hacking. Cool beans, right? We also go to cons. Cons are the largest gathering of social hackers you'll ever meet. They're awesome. I've had more fun at cons than anywhere else. Hackathons. Who's heard of a hackathon before? Okay, hackathon is a little different. It's basically where people get together in a group for one weekend and try to solve a problem. Generally, it normally stays within the realm of computer science. So like, oh, we'd really like to make this app that does this. Can we do that? And they'll try to crunch it out in 3 days. But it can be expanded to more than that. Let's say you really want to